Now from Europe to the Middle East, a region that's no stranger to suicide attacks. But the scope of today's events was shocking by any standards. Still, there were pockets of Palestinians who celebrated today's attacks. Joining us with the latest from the Middle East, the CBC's Neil McDonald. Neil.
Peter, the mood here in Jerusalem, and I think it's safe to say in the Palestinian territories and elsewhere in the Arab world, is a somber one. There's a feeling here of great foreboding. If, and I say if, these attacks were perpetrated by Arab extremists, then Israel is inevitably drawn into the equation, as are the Palestinians and other Arab states. For the past year, especially since the election of President Bush, Israel and the United States of America have become synonymous in the mind of the Arab street. To a great many Arabs, both countries are now bitter enemies. And that explains some of the scenes we saw here today. In Arab East Jerusalem, groups of people took to the street, celebrating, toasting Osama bin Laden, and generally hailing whomever managed to inflict such a lethal blow against Israel's closest ally and greatest protector. There were similar celebrations in the cities of the West Bank and in the Palestinian refugee camps of Lebanon. Most Arab leaders, though, understanding the sheer foolishness of taunting Americans at a time like this, were greatly restrained.
First of all, I am offering my condolences, the condolences of the Palestinian people to the American President, President Bush, to his government, to the American people for this terrible act. We are completely shocked. Completely shocked. Unbelievable.
Palestinian extremist groups, though, issued cold denials and took the opportunity to lecture the United States. We are opposed to U.S. oppression, said this leader of Hamas, itself a group that has dispatched suicide bombers. We call upon the U.S. to take fair stands and not take Israel's side.
We deny our responsibility, but we call upon the American administration to review their attitude and their policy towards the Palestinian question, because this policy arouses the anger and the hatred of our people and of all Arab and Islamic peoples.
The terror attacks.
Israeli leaders universally expressed grief and condolences and declared a national day of mourning.
The fight against terror is an international struggle of the free world against the forces of darkness who seek to destroy our liberty and our way of life.
This was not an attack just against America. It was an attack against civilization, an attempt to bring us back to a jungle where everybody will be full of fear.
On the popular Israeli political program Popolitica, an Israeli general called for the immediate liquidation of Yasser Arafat.
What the American people
and from a former prime minister,
Israel. We here in Israel have been standing and fighting at the front line against terrorism for years. But now terrorism is struck at the heart of freedom. And this is exactly what this battle is. It's a battle between the forces of tyranny and terrorism and the forces of freedom and democracy.
And that, no doubt, is how the Arabs of the Middle East now fear the lines will be drawn, with them cast irretrievably as terrorists and the word Islam synonymous with atrocity in the Western mind. It's probably safe to say that most people here, Arab and Jew, now feel their lives have changed, and that the geopolitical lines here have shifted reality. Certainly, the current Palestinian intifada, the uprising, is going to be seen in quite a different light, beginning now. Peter?
Neil, at any time a major event has an impact on the Middle East, you have to weigh carefully the impact that it can have on either side in the historic dispute. There seems to be a sense that as awful as this is, the event that's happened in the United States today, that on the side of Israel expressing its shock and horror at what's happened, it almost seems that they feel that this can have an impact for them of a beneficial nature.
Well, Peter, you heard the sorrow and the sympathy that was expressed by Israeli leaders today, and it's genuine, but I think at the same time there is sort of a glimmer of grim satisfaction that the rest of the world has met Israel's enemy, and in a very sudden way. You know, and I think Israeli leaders are hoping that the world will close ranks with them. That's what they're asking for. I think to a certain extent that has begun. Simply the use of the word terrorism. Western news agencies and governments have been chary about using that word with regard to this conflict up to now, viewing it largely as a political construct. That's changed. The word terrorism is certainly on our style book now, and it's being used widely by Western news agencies, and I think just that is the start of the world's perception perhaps growing a little bit closer to Israel's about this sort of thing, and that will certainly be welcome to the leadership here.
All right, and underlining, as you have been throughout the day, I know it's early tomorrow morning in Jerusalem right now in terms of the time schedule here in this side of the Atlantic, but underlining as you have all day, still no indication who was responsible for this, all kinds of fingers being pointed, but at this hour still no firm indication of who is responsible. Neil MacDonald reporting to us tonight from Jerusalem.